This morning after breakfast, we visited a gem factory. Sri Lanka is renowned for its high-quality precious and semi-precious gems. We learnt about the manual mining methods that are used to extract these beautiful rocks. We then went on to visit a tea factory where we observed the fascinating process of manufacturing tea, with a lot of the process still done by hand. We also learnt how tea is graded and the many blends that are created for different countries. We were given a cup of pure Ceylon tea to end our tour. From here, our bus transported us to the Royal Botanic Gardens, Peradeniya, where we enjoyed lunch overlooking the Great Lawn, which is home to a Java willow or a Java fig tree, occupying the centre of the lawn like a living umbrella. The gardens were first built as a pleasure garden by a Sinhala king and expanded by the British, covering approximately 147 acres. The best attraction is the Orchid House, where we saw more than 1,000 plants in a captivating display of exotic blooms. We then enjoyed a lovely drive through the nearby university grounds before returning to the hotel. We set off for the train station in the morning to travel from Peradeniya to Nuwara. Our train was running behind schedule and we were beckoned by the very proud local railway workers to come and view the signal station on an impromptu behind-the-scenes railway tour. Once the train arrived, we found our allocated seats and settled in to enjoy the unparalleled views and penetrating glimpses both of the scenic beauty and culture of the hill country as we travelled along. The hillsides were covered in neat rows of tea plantations, and we even spied some waterfalls as the train snaked its way through the countryside. On arrival at Nuwara, our trusty bus driver greeted us and took us the rest of the way to Nuwara Eliya, where a magnificent afternoon tea awaited us at the Aralia Green Hills Hotel. No less than 4 chefs and 4 managers and an event photographer were on hand to greet us and present their delicious creations for our enjoyment. Such a beautiful display. After eating our fill, we were driven to our hotel, the Jetwing St Andrews, and from here we wandered down the hill to explore the town and see the locals in action. Today we experienced a spectacular journey as we travelled on to Yala, visiting Yala Gap on our way. Yala is situated 230 kilometres from the capital of Colombo and overlooks a stunning gap in the southern mountains where the land falls to a dizzying drop of 3,000 feet into the southern sea. The small town is used as a base for many trekking expeditions to the surrounding areas. We stopped here for a tea break and explored the main street before continuing to the Ravana waterfall and then on to Yala, where we had lunch at the Cinnamon Wild Yala Hotel. In the afternoon, we enjoyed a Yala National Park wildlife jeep safari. Yala National Park is the second largest national park in Sri Lanka. It is home to a wide variety of wildlife. Large herds of elephants, spotted deer, wild boar, buffaloes, and many species of birds, as well as the stars of the show, the leopards, if they feel like being seen. The vegetation ranges from open parkland to dense jungle, and there is an abundance of water supply for the animals, ranging from waterholes, streams, and small lakes to lagoons. Towards the end of our safari, word came through of a leopard hiding out under a tree. All the jeeps in the park descended upon the area, with tourists craning their necks to get a glimpse. Patience and persistence paid off, and we were fortunate to see the leopard stroll through the grass after most of the jeeps had gone. Leopards sighted, and we returned to our hotel for dinner after another big day. After enjoying a delicious hopper with egg and other yummy delights from the breakfast buffet, we set off in slightly drizzly weather towards Galle. On our way, we stopped on the coast to see an area famous for their stilt fishermen. Here, the local fishermen demonstrated the traditional fishing technique of the southern part of Sri Lanka, perching on a crossbar off a single pole planted into the seabed in chest-deep water just a few metres offshore. We stopped for a buffet lunch before continuing to our hotel, the Radisson Blu in Galle. This morning, with the sun shining down quite warmly, we enjoyed a tour of Galle. This southern capital of Sri Lanka is 116 kilometres from Colombo and home to the Santa Cruz Fort, a UNESCO World Heritage listed site. The fort was initially built by the Portuguese in 1619 and then subsequently expanded and developed by the Dutch and the British. Galle was the main seaport before Colombo and to this day is still an active seaport. During our walking tour, we visited Galle Fort, the ramparts and the old Dutch church. On the rampart, we came across a cliff diving performer who braved the precarious jump into the ocean below, landing between the rocks, and then climbed back up again. We were then free to spend the afternoon at leisure with all our meals provided at the hotel. Today we commenced our trip to the nation's capital, Colombo. En route, we visited the Tsunami Museum and learnt about the devastating effects that the 2004 tsunami had on this part of Sri Lanka. Sadly, the Sri Lankan death toll was over 50,000 people. It was quite a sobering visit. We then journeyed by boat on the Madu River, which is a complex coastal ecosystem of mangroves and islands. There are around 64 islands in the river and lagoon, teeming with wildlife, jellyfish, and we were amazed to see swimming water monitors and a baby crocodile which the tourist guide stopped to let us handle. We stopped off at one point to learn how cinnamon is harvested, dried, and then turned into multiple cinnamon products. And after our cinnamon experience, some of us enjoyed a fish foot spa with the fish in the netted areas providing a natural exfoliation of our feet. From here we returned to the bus and went on to the small town of Kozgoda, where we visited a turtle hatchery which is operated by the Wildlife Protection Society of Sri Lanka, where local fishermen are paid for rescuing the vulnerable turtle eggs which they collect at night. We arrived at our hotel, the Cinnamon Grand, and enjoyed the best meal of our trip for dinner. Such a magnificent buffet of high-quality food. Before we left the hotel this morning, we were treated to a pre-wedding ceremony show, replete with dancers and musicians, giving us a fascinating insight into the culture. Then onto our bus for a sightseeing tour of Colombo, Sri Lanka's largest city. As we drove through the busy commercial areas, we saw the contrast between the old and the new, colonial era buildings next to modern commercial tower blocks. We saw the old Parliament building and the modern Bandaranaike Memorial International Conference Hall with its fountain feature, the white dome of Colombo's City Hall in Cinnamon Gardens, and the striking Lotus Tower standing 351 metres tall. We drove past the busy and bustling bazaar area too. We visited the exterior of the oldest Hindu temple in Colombo, intrigued by the elaborate stone carvings dedicated to the gods Ganesha and Shiva. We stopped off for some last-minute souvenir shopping before visiting the Independence Memorial Hall, which was built as a national monument to commemorate Sri Lanka gaining its freedom from the British on the very location the historic event occurred. After lunch in a local restaurant, we visited the Colombo National Museum, which was built in 1877. This museum has an overwhelming and impressive collection of antiques and objects of art. And finally, we returned to the hotel to pack and rest before our farewell dinner and a spectacular view of the sunset from the scenic Galle Face Green overlooking the waterfront. From here, we farewelled our tour guide as we left for the airport to depart beautiful Sri Lanka.
Hi.
Hi. So if you like this video, what should you do, Kim?
Thumbs up and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.